Do you believe that once, a man claimed he could build a weapon so powerful it could bring down planes from hundreds of kilometers away without a single bullet, explosion, or visible projectile? Just pure energy, fired through the air, capable of cutting steel and flattening armies. Sounds like science fiction, right? But that was Nikola Tesla. And the weapon? He called it the death ray. Now picture this. It's the 1930s. Tesla, once the rock star of the scientific world, is older, more eccentric, and living in a hotel room in New York City. The world has moved on to newer celebrities in science, but not Tesla. He's still sketching, dreaming, and building devices that no one else dares to imagine. And then he makes the announcement. He says he's designed a machine that can end all wars, not by diplomacy, by power. Raw, concentrated energy, transmitted across vast distances. He named it Teleforce. But journalists, hungry for a headline, gave it a much juicier name, the death ray. Tesla explained that the device wouldn't shoot light or lasers, but rather a concentrated stream of microscopic metal particles so fast, so energetic, that they could tear through battleships and disintegrate aircraft in midair. This wasn't a fantasy. Tesla detailed the mechanism, sent proposals to governments, the US, Britain, France, even the Soviet Union. Some ignored him. Others listened, briefly, then backed away. You see, Tesla never imagined the death ray as an offensive weapon. He called it a defensive shield, something so powerful that no nation would dare attack another. His idea was, if everyone had one, no one would use it. War would become pointless. It wasn't about domination, it was deterrence. Tesla's vision wasn't just scientific, it was philosophical. But reality, as always, was more complicated. There's no record of any government funding his prototype. Though rumor has it the Soviet Union sent representatives to speak with him in 1939, some believe they even negotiated partial support. Then, World War II erupted, and if there was any progress, it vanished into the fog of war. And here's where the story gets really mysterious. After Tesla died in 1943, the FBI swooped in. They seized his notebooks, sketches, models, over 80 trunks full of his life's work. Some materials were released. Some were sent to the Tesla Museum in Belgrade. But others? Gone. Missing. Locked away? Destroyed? No one really knows. It's this absence that keeps the myth of the death ray alive. In the decades since, conspiracy theories have swirled. Did the US military secretly use Tesla's notes to develop energy weapons? Are directed energy systems today, like microwave or laser cannons, descendants of Teleforce? No one can say for sure, but many scientists agree what Tesla described is, at least in theory, possible. We have particle beam technology now, but in the 1930s, way ahead of his time. So then, why did Tesla, a man obsessed with clean energy and wireless transmission, create something so destructive? Was it desperation? A final bid for relevance? Or did he truly believe that only by wielding enormous power could humanity ever achieve peace? He died alone, in a small hotel room, without fanfare. But the legend of his death ray didn't die with him. It's echoed in books, in sci-fi films, in late-night debates on whether governments are hiding the truth. It's one of those stories that blurs the line between genius and madness, between fact and myth. And maybe, just maybe, somewhere in a secret lab, someone is still trying to make that beam a reality. Maybe Tesla didn't just dream of the future. Maybe he built it, and the rest of us are still trying to catch up. Imagine building a tower not to touch the sky, but to electrify the earth. That was Nikola Tesla's dream. Not just to light up cities, but to power the entire planet. No wires, no plugs, just pure energy flowing invisibly through the ground and air, reaching every home, every machine, every corner of the world. Sounds unbelievable? Welcome to the story of Wardenclyffe. In the early 1900s, fresh off his triumph with alternating current, Tesla had another vision far bolder, far more radical. He believed he could use the Earth itself as a conductor to transmit electricity wirelessly. He imagined a global network of energy and information where people could communicate and receive power without a single cable. The concept was wild, but not to Tesla. To him, it was inevitable. So he found land in Shoreham, Long Island. With financial backing from J.P. Morgan, the same tycoon who had funded Edison, Tesla began constructing the Wardenclyffe Tower in 1901. It was tall, strange-looking, with a metal dome on top and deep tunnels below. But it wasn't just a tower. It was a transmitter. A machine designed to send electricity through the Earth's surface like ripples in water. But Tesla didn't stop there. He believed this tower could also transmit voice, images, and even data across the globe. In other words, she dreamed of wireless internet before radio even became popular. He called it the world system and described it in terms so futuristic that most people didn't even understand what he was talking about. And then he made a fatal mistake. Tesla began talking publicly about how energy should be free for everyone. No meters, no bills. Just antennas that could pull power from the air, like radios pull music. To him, electricity was a natural right, not a commodity. But to J.P. Morgan, that was the end of the road. Morgan had invested to make money, not to give away energy. And when he realized Tesla's dream involved making his business model obsolete, he pulled the plug. Funding stopped. The tower sat unfinished. Tesla, heartbroken, tried to keep the dream alive with scraps of money. But by 1917, the tower was dismantled, some say by Tesla himself. Others say by the government, fearing it could be used for spying during the war. Now, here's where things get weird. Some reports claim that before it was destroyed, the tower actually worked at least in small-scale tests. People nearby said they saw light bulbs glowing without wires. Some even claimed to see artificial lightning shoot from the tower's base. But if those experiments happened, there's no surviving evidence, no photos, no confirmed documentation, just stories. Even weirder, Tesla once said he received strange signals from space while working on wireless technology in Colorado Springs. He believed they might be from extraterrestrials. So, was Wardenclyffe just an energy projector? Was it also an attempt to communicate with other worlds? We'll never know. Today, the site of the tower still exists. There's no structure left, just ruins and a plaque. But the idea behind it? It's very much alive. Wireless energy transmission is real. We're developing it now, charging phones without cords, exploring how to power devices remotely. Elon Musk's company Tesla is even named after the man who dreamed all this more than a century ago. So why didn't it happen sooner? Was the world just not ready? Or was the dream killed by greed and short-sightedness? Maybe both. What's certain is that Tesla saw something far ahead of his time and tried to build it with bare hands, limited funds, and unlimited imagination. Today, every time we connect to Wi-Fi, stream a video, or charge a device wirelessly, we're living inside the future Tesla once tried to create. Wardenclyffe wasn't just a tower, it was a message. A declaration that the limits we accept are only there because we haven't dared to tear them down yet. And maybe, if we listen closely, we can still hear the echo of that dream humming through the static of our modern lives. What if I told you that one man working alone in a tiny New York Labance built a device so powerful it could shake buildings, rattle neighborhoods, and mimic the fury of an earthquake? And what if I told you he claimed it could be scaled up to split the earth in half? It sounds like something from a superhero movie, but to Nikola Tesla, it was just another Tuesday. Let's rewind to the late 1890s. Tesla was in his lab on South Fifth Avenue in Manhattan, experimenting with a small mechanical oscillator, basically, a vibrating machine. It looked harmless, about the size of a toaster. But Tesla wasn't just tinkering for fun. He was trying to understand resonance, the natural frequency at which objects vibrate. Every material has a resonant frequency. Hit it just right, and even a gentle push can cause massive movement. That was the principle behind his so-called earthquake machine. One day, while adjusting the oscillator, Tesla noticed something strange. The building started to shake. Pipes rattled. Tools fell off shelves. And the vibrations got stronger and stronger. He realized he had accidentally hit the building's natural frequency. Within minutes, the entire neighborhood felt like it was in the middle of a mild quake. Panicked neighbors called the police. Tesla, realizing the danger, grabbed a sledgehammer and smashed the device to pieces before the cops arrived. He later joked that he could have brought the Brooklyn Bridge down in a matter of minutes with the same principle, or even toppled a skyscraper. Was he exaggerating? Probably. But the science behind it is real. Think of soldiers breaking step on a bridge to avoid harmonic collapse, or how an opera singer can shatter a glass with the right pitch. Tesla just took that idea to the extreme. And he didn't stop there. He claimed that if a large enough oscillator were placed deep underground and tuned precisely to the Earth's frequency, it could cause actual seismic activity earthquakes on demand. In his words, "Give me a lever and a place to stand, and I will move the Earth." That wasn't just poeticid, was a warning. So, did he really build a weaponized earthquake machine? Officially, no. No prototype was ever recovered. No patent was filed. But like many of Tesla's claims, it sits in that eerie gray area between myth and possibility. Later in life, Tesla hinted that his oscillator design had military potential, not just to shake buildings, but to detect submarines, locate underground minerals, even disrupt enemy structures. Some even say the government looked into the idea during World War II, but found it too unpredictable. And here's where it gets even more mysterious. There are conspiracy theories, of course there are, that say Tesla's work on resonance was secretly adopted by military programs. Some claim the infamous HARP project in Alaska, which studies the ionosphere, is actually based on Tesla's ideas. Others believe that Tesla's oscillator is the inspiration behind experimental crowd control weapons or seismic manipulation tools. Are they true? No one's confirming anything, but the rumors persist. What makes this story stick isn't just the machine, it's the image of Tesla himself, alone, wild-haired, standing over a vibrating box, feeling the pulse of the earth in his hands. Not trying to destroy, but trying to understand, to master nature's rhythms the way a conductor leads an orchestra. Today, we still study resonance in engineering and physics. We still struggle to predict earthquakes or harness seismic energy. But Tesla? He claimed he touched the edge of that power, then walked away, because he feared what might happen if it fell into the wrong hands. Maybe he never split the earth. But for a few minutes, in that Manhattan lab, he made it tremble. And that's enough to remind us that the line between genius and danger is often no thicker than the vibration of a machine. Here's a wild thought. What if you could weaponize the ocean? Not just with submarines or torpedoes, but with actual waves. Giant, unstoppable, city-flattening waves. Nikola Tesla once claimed he could do exactly that. He envisioned a weapon so discreet, so terrifying, it could strike without warning, using nothing but water. And the world, he said, wouldn't even see it coming. Let's rewind to the 1930s again, Tesla's twilight years, but creatively, he was still electric. Among his lesser-known but most disturbing ideas was a concept for generating artificial tidal waves. He believed that by detonating carefully timed explosions underwater triggered remotely, he could create massive waves, capable of wiping out entire naval fleets or coastal cities. It wouldn't be a traditional weapon, but a natural disaster made to order. Tesla's reasoning was simple. If you can control energy, you can control pressure. And if you can control pressure, especially underwater, you can move unimaginable amounts of water. He proposed that small, targeted blasts precisely positioned in shallow waters could send energy rippling outward, building momentum as it traveled until it became a wave of devastation. Think of it as weaponized weather, a tsunami on demand. Now, did he ever build it? Not that we know. But Tesla hinted in writings and interviews that this kind of system could be built using wireless transmission of physical trigger. No wires, just remote energy activating underwater mechanisms. He called it a peace weapon, ironically. Why? Because, like the death ray, he believed that if every nation had access to it, no one would dare wage war. After all, how do you fight an enemy that can summon the ocean itself? Skeptical? You're not alone. Even in Tesla's time, most scientists dismiss the idea. The physics of tsunamis is complicated, and creating one artificially isn't as simple as dropping a bomb. But here's the twist: governments listened. According to some declassified documents, both the US and Soviet Union investigated the concept during and after World War II. There's even evidence that during the 1940s, New Zealand and the US collaborated on Project SEAL, an attempt to create tsunami waves using underwater explosions. They didn't succeed, but the idea wasn't just Tesla's fantasy anymore. And then there are the darker corners of the internet, the conspiracy theories. Some claim Tesla's notes on artificial tidal waves were among the documents seized after his death. Others say modern military experiments involving underwater sonic booms and magnetic pulse technology are based on Tesla's ideas. There's no hard proof, of course. But when it comes to Tesla, the absence of evidence often fuels the myth. What's fascinating isn't whether he did it, but that he thought it was possible. That he imagined a future where humans could bend nature so precisely they could mimic earthquakes, summon lightning, and even move the sea. To Tesla, the forces of Earth weren't boundaries. They were tools. He didn't see water as a passive element. He saw it as power waiting to be unlocked. And in a strange way, he wasn't wrong. Today, we harness tidal energy for electricity. We use sonar to map the ocean floor, and we've developed technology that can send shock waves underwater with pinpoint accuracy. It's not quite a tsunami cannon, but it's closer than most people realize. The truth is, Tesla didn't want to destroy the world. He wanted to make it safe by inventing weapons so terrifying they'd never be used. He believed in peace through strength. And while his tidal wave weapon never made it off the page, the idea that someone, somewhere, could flip a switch and turn the ocean into a weapon, that idea has never left. So next time you stand at the edge of the sea, watching the waves roll in, imagine one of them isn't natural. Imagine it was built not by the moon, but by the mind of a man who thought the earth itself could be programmed. That's Tesla for you. Always dreaming, always dangerous, and always a few centuries ahead. What if we could fly halfway around the world in just a few hours without using a drop of fuel? What if planes could glide through the sky, powered not by engines, but by invisible energy beamed from the ground? That wasn't just a fantasy to Nikola Tesla. That was his plan. And long before modern engineers dreamed of supersonic jets or wireless charging, Tesla imagined a world where aircraft never needed to refuel because energy would be everywhere. Let's go back to the early 20th century. Airplanes were still new, clunky machines made of wood and fabric. But Tesla? He was already thinking bigger. In interviews and letters, he described a vision of aircraft that could fly at incredible speeds, thousands of kilometers per hour, powered not by internal combustion engines, but by wireless transmission of energy. Yes, he literally wanted to beam power from the Earth straight into the sky. Tesla believed that using the Earth's own electrical field, combined with high-frequency transmissions from special towers like his Warden Cliff project, he could send focused energy to any point in the atmosphere. Aircraft would be equipped with special receivers like energy antennas that could catch this power and convert it into motion. No fuel tanks, no emissions, just clean, limitless flight. And that's not even the craziest part. Tesla also talked about these aircraft being able to hover silently, move vertically, and fly without wings or propellers. Sounds like science fiction? Today, we'd call it a drone, but he was describing this in the 1910s and 1920s. He wasn't just predicting future tech, he was sketching it. He once claimed that he could build a flying machine devoid of sustaining planes, ailerons, propellers, or other external attachments, something that moved as a fish moves through water. He never built a working prototype, but he said the designs existed. He just lacked the funding and backing to bring them to life. So what happened to these plans? Like many of Tesla's most ambitious ideas, they vanished, either lost, stolen, or locked away after his death. Some believe the designs were among the papers seized by U.S. authorities in 1943. Others think Tesla simply never finished them. But as always with Tesla, the line between fact and legend is blurry. Here's the thing. Today, we're inching toward Tesla's dream. Companies are developing solar-powered drones that can fly for months. Wireless charging is becoming mainstream. Scientists are experimenting with microwave and laser-based power beaming. Tesla didn't have the technology to make his flying machines real, but he had the vision, and that vision is still guiding us. And there's more. Some of Tesla's statements later in life suggest he wasn't just imagining peaceful passenger aircraft. He talked about autonomous flying weapons machines that could fly without pilots and deliver destruction with precision. Yes, in the 1930s, he described what we now call military drones. A chilling thought that even his cleanest, most elegant inventions could be twisted into tools of war. But for Tesla, flight wasn't just about speed or power. It was about freedom. He wanted to lift humanity off the ground, free us from wires, weight, and waste. He believed energy should flow like air, and so should we. Imagine stepping onto a plane, sitting back, and soaring across the sky without hearing an engine roar or feeling a single vibration. Imagine travel without pollution, airports without fuel trucks, skies without noise. That was Tesla's dream. And while we're still chasing it, every whisper of electric aviation today carries the echo of his imagination. So the next time you see a sleek, quiet drone zip through the sky or hear about a plane powered by solar cells, remember Tesla was already there, a century ago. Drawing, dreaming, daring to think of a world that could fly, not with wings, but with ideas. Now imagine this, a device that lets you see someone's thoughts, not metaphorically, literally. A machine that could take the image from your mind and project it onto a screen. You're not dreaming. That was Nikola Tesla's idea, and in the 1930s, he claimed he was working on it. He called it a thought camera, and while the name sounds like a science fiction prop, Tesla described it with remarkable clarity. In an interview, he explained his theory that the human eye records images as electrical impressions on the retina, and that the brain interprets those signals. His idea was simple, at least conceptually. If the brain can convert visual input into electrical signals, why couldn't we reverse that process? Why not build a device that reads those signals and reconstructs the original image? In other words, Tesla believed we could photograph a thought. He imagined a machine that would detect the electromagnetic patterns in the brain and recreate what a person was thinking about, like printing out a dream. He speculated that with proper calibration, it could eventually display not just what someone saw, but also what they imagined. Thoughts, memories, emotions, all turned into visible, tangible data. Of course, at the time, this sounded like madness. Brain science was still in its infancy. Electroencephalography, EEG, was just beginning to be explored. But Tesla, as always, was decades ahead. Today, researchers are building brain-computer interfaces that attempt exactly this, using AI to reconstruct visual imagery based on brain scans. In fact, recent experiments have managed to recreate blurry images of what subjects were looking at, just by analyzing brainwave data. Was Tesla really the first to think of this? Maybe not, but he was certainly one of the loudest. And he didn't stop there. He imagined his thought camera being used to diagnose mental illness, detect lies, or even communicate between minds. He wasn't talking about surveillance. He was talking about understanding, a deeper shared human experience. But this is important. Tesla also warned that such power would need to be used wisely. If you could see someone's thoughts, could you control them? If thoughts can be broadcast, can they also be manipulated? Tesla didn't want to build a weapon, he wanted to build a window. But he knew that not everyone would look through it with good intentions. So, did he ever build it? There's no record of a working prototype, no schematics survived, or if they did, they vanished with his other seized notes after his death. But the very idea was shocking enough to inspire scientists, futurists, and fiction writers for generations. And maybe that's the point. Even if Tesla didn't invent a literal mind-reading machine, he cracked something deeper. He understood that the human brain is not a closed box. It's electric. It's magnetic. It's measurable. He saw our thoughts not as invisible whispers, but as signals waiting to be received. Today, we're standing at the edge of that reality. Neural interfaces, brain mapping, thought-to-text conversion, all of it slowly becoming real. And somewhere, in the flicker of a screen or the pulse of a neuron, Tesla's voice still echoes. What one man calls God, another calls the laws of physics. So, next time you catch yourself daydreaming, ask, what if someone could see that? What if that image, that feeling, that memory could be recorded, shared, preserved? In Tesla's world, that wasn't fantasy. That was the future, and it's arriving faster than we think. Imagine waking up in a future where rain falls when you ask for it. Storms are turned off like a light switch, and droughts are just canceled. Sounds impossible? Maybe. But not to Nikola Tesla. He believed that if we could harness the forces of nature, we could command the weather itself. And he wasn't just speculating, he said. He had the science to do it. Tesla had long believed that everything weather, lightning, even human emotion was connected through electromagnetic energy. To him, the atmosphere wasn't just sky and clouds. It was a giant electrical system waiting to be tuned, like a piano. And if you hit the right frequency, you could make the clouds dance. He speculated that with the right kind of energy, pulse-frequency waves directed into the upper atmosphere, we could influence the formation of storms, move moisture, or even trigger rain. In one lecture, Tesla hinted that by modifying the ionosphere, he could stimulate the Earth's natural currents and nudge weather patterns into submission. This wasn't just theory. He claimed to have observed these effects during his experiments in Colorado Springs, where massive sparks and electrical bursts were common. He believed he was already nudging the environment. At the time, of course, no one took him seriously. The idea of weather control was far beyond the science of the early 1900s. Even today, it sounds like something out of a sci-fi novel. But fast forward a few decades and suddenly, Tesla's wild vision doesn't seem so far-fetched. During the Cold War, both the US and Soviet Union dabbled in weather modification. Projects like Storm Fury and Popeye aimed to weaken hurricanes or flood enemy supply lines by seeding clouds with chemicals. More recently, countries like China have experimented with weather control to prevent rain during major events or even create snow on command. And then there's HAARP, the High-Frequency Active Auroral Research Program in Alaska. It's a real research facility designed to study the ionosphere. But it's also the center of countless conspiracy theories claiming it can manipulate weather or trigger natural disasters. And whether you believe those stories or not, one thing is clear. Tesla was the first to imagine such a system, a tool to poke the sky. What did he want from all this? Control? Power? No, he wanted balance. Tesla saw weather control not as domination, but as protection, to end famine, prevent floods, and stop deadly droughts. If nature could be chaotic, why not help it behave better? Why not give humanity the ability to cooperate with the clouds? Of course, he also saw the danger. He warned that if such power were abused, it could become the deadliest weapon imaginable. Imagine turning a storm into a bomb. Imagine stealing the rain from one country and giving it to another. Weather, in the wrong hands, could be worse than war. Tesla never built a working weather machine, at least none that we know of. But his ideas are alive in modern research, in every effort to seed clouds, in every experiment with atmospheric energy. And the fact that governments still pour millions into these projects? It suggests Tesla wasn't crazy. He was just early, as always. So the next time the sky darkens, or a sudden rain breaks the heat, think of it this way. What if that wasn't just nature doing its thing? What if, somewhere far away, someone flipped a switch just like Tesla once imagined and the sky obeyed? There's lightning that flashes, thunder that cracks, and then there's something else. Something strange, something few people have seen with their own eyes. A glowing sphere of electricity, floating silently through the air like a ghost made of plasma. Scientists call it ball lightning. Nikola Tesla? He claimed he could create it on command. Ball lightning is one of nature's weirdest mysteries. It's been reported for centuries, floating orbs of light, sometimes the size of a baseball, sometimes larger, drifting eerily during storms. They pass through windows, explode without warning, or just vanish like illusions. No one knows exactly what causes them, and most physicists still call them unexplained. But Tesla, he didn't think they were random at all. In fact, he believed they were entirely reproducible. In the early 1900s, during his high-voltage experiments in Colorado Springs, Tesla reported seeing glowing spheres appear inside his lab. Not just one, but several. He believed he had created artificial ball lightning, tiny pockets of plasma suspended in air, powered by carefully tuned electrical discharges. To Tesla, this wasn't just a curiosity, it was a revelation. He thought ball lightning could hold the key to understanding how to store and transmit energy in entirely new ways. Imagine a glowing orb floating across a room, carrying energy from one point to another with no wires, no sparks, no contact. Wireless power, not as a wave, but as a shape. He even suggested that these orbs might be used as information carriers like energy messengers. And yes, he once speculated that such phenomena might explain some sightings of mysterious lights in the sky, hinting at the possibility of ball lightning being mistaken for alien activity. Skeptics rolled their eyes. The technology of the time couldn't come close to reproducing Tesla's claims. Most of his ball lightning experiments were undocumented or lost when his notes were seized. But again, Tesla was playing in a sandbox that no one else even knew existed. Modern science still struggles to explain ball lightning. Some researchers have tried to recreate it in the lab with limited success. Others have proposed it's just a trick of the eye, or a hallucination triggered by intense electromagnetic fields. But then, people keep seeing it. Pilots, storm chasers, random observers. And they all describe the same thing: a floating, glowing, unpredictable sphere of light. Could Tesla have found a way to control it? If so, the implications are massive. Imagine storing energy in a stable, moving form, sending a light ball full of power across space like a wireless battery. Tesla may have glimpsed a future of energy storage and transfer that we still don't fully understand. And if he was right, then ball lightning isn't a freak event, it's a new kind of technology, waiting to be unlocked. In Tesla's world, lightning wasn't just weather, it was a tool, a resource, a language. He spoke in sparks and dreamed in voltage. And while most people ran from the storm, Tesla stepped into it and saw something floating there that the rest of us are still trying to explain. So next time you hear thunder and see lightning flash, remember, there might be something stranger drifting behind the clouds. Something round, something glowing, something Tesla may have touched. 100 years ago, in a world obsessed with moving parts, gears, pistons, motors, Nikola Tesla built something that did the opposite. A device with no moving pieces, no springs, no hinges, no mechanical tricks. Yet it could control the flow of fluid like magic. It's called the Tesla valve. And while it sounds humble compared to death rays or wireless energy, it might be one of his most underrated masterpieces. Tesla patented it in 1920. On paper, it looks like a simple pipe with a few bends and bulges. But it's not random. The shape is precisely designed to allow fluid or gas to flow freely in one direction, while offering heavy resistance in the other. Like a one-way street with no traffic lights, no stop signs, and no moving gates. It just works. By design, the genius of the Tesla valve lies in its simplicity. In normal valves, something moves, a flap opens, a spring compresses, a seal breaks. But Tesla didn't want movement. He wanted efficiency. Something that would never wear out, never jam, never need repair. And he made it work purely with geometry and physics. Back in Tesla's time, no one really knew what to do with it. The industrial world wasn't ready. They preferred the clunky, noisy, mechanical kind of progress. The Tesla valve was too quiet, too elegant, too subtle. And like many of his ideas, it faded into obscurity. But today, it's back, with a vengeance. Modern engineers have rediscovered the Tesla valve and now realize it's perfect for microfluidics, where tiny streams of liquid need to be directed with precision. It's used in fuel systems, chemical labs, and even medical devices. Its unique structure allows it to handle pulsating flows, resist back pressure, and survive high heat without ever breaking. In fact, recent studies have shown that Tesla's design is nearly as effective as some of the best modern check valves, despite being invented over 100 years ago and with no computer simulations, no CAD software, just Tesla's brain and a pencil. Why does this matter? Because it proves something important. Tesla wasn't just a dreamer of big, flashy ideas. He understood fundamentals. He appreciated the beauty of a design so pure that it didn't need complexity to be brilliant. The Tesla valve is a reminder that sometimes the future isn't about adding more. It's about removing what's unnecessary, creating something so clever it feels like nature itself made it. And perhaps that was Tesla's real gift, not just inventing the future, but doing it with such elegance that we didn't even notice until decades later. So, next time you see something work effortlessly, no noise, no fuss, just smooth, silent function, think of Tesla. Think of the valve that never moves, but always flows. And remember, brilliance doesn't have to shout. Sometimes it just hums quietly through a pipe, 100 years ahead of its time. When Nikola Tesla died in 1943, he didn't just leave behind a hotel room, he left behind a mystery. A mystery packed into dozens of wooden trunks filled with notebooks, diagrams, strange devices, and sketches of machines the world had never seen. Some called them junk. Others believed they held the key to untold scientific power. But here's the strangest part. Not all of those trunks were ever seen again. Tesla died alone in room 3327 at the New Yorker Hotel. Within hours, the U.S. government moved in. Officials from the Office of Alien Property seized all his belongings, not because he was a criminal, but because he was a genius. A potentially dangerous one. They weren't sure what they'd find. So they took everything. In total, more than 80 trunks were collected. Some were filled with personal items, but others contained technical papers with names like Dynamic Theory of Gravity, Free Energy Device, and yes, Teleforce, Tesla's infamous death ray. Some of these documents were eventually reviewed by a consulting physicist, Dr. John G. LeMay. Trump, yes, the uncle of future President Donald Trump, who claimed there was nothing of practical value in them. But that raises a question. If there was nothing important, why seize it all? Why not just return it to Tesla's family? Why store it? Why lock it away? Here's where the trail gets fuzzy. Some of the trunks were later shipped to Tesla's relatives in Yugoslavia, now part of Serbia, where many are on display in the Nikola Tesla Museum in Belgrade. But not all. A number of trunks, perhaps containing Tesla's most radical idea, simply vanished. No record, no receipts, no explanation. That missing piece has fueled conspiracy theories for decades. Some believe the U.S. military quietly absorbed his work into classified programs like HARP, directed energy weapons, or even secret propulsion systems. Others claim Tesla was working on anti-gravity tech or time manipulation, and that the government feared what might happen if it fell into the wrong hands. Too far-fetched? Maybe. But consider this. Tesla was inventing wireless energy before radio, remote control before drones, robotics before AI. If he was working on something outrageous, who's to say it wasn't real? To this day, the contents of those missing trunks are unknown. Declassified FBI files hint at concern over potential weapons applications. Some reports suggest there were diagrams involving scalar waves, resonance weapons, or methods of tapping into the Earth's natural energy fields. But nobody knows for sure. And that's the most Tesla thing of all. He lived his life on the edge of science and magic, fact and fiction, always a step ahead, always misunderstood. Maybe the trunks were destroyed. Maybe they're gathering dust in a government warehouse. Or maybe, just maybe, someone out there found them and is quietly working on something the rest of us aren't ready to see. Whatever the truth is, one thing's clear. Tesla didn't just take secrets to the grave. Some of them were boxed up, locked down, and hidden away. And the world has been wondering ever since, what did we lose when we lost Nikola Tesla? Maybe it wasn't just a man. Maybe it was the future itself. On the night of the 10th of July, 1856, the heavens above the village of Smiljan roared with fury. Thunder cracked like the sky itself was tearing apart, and forks of lightning lit up the dark slopes of the Velebit Mountains. Amidst this chaos, inside a modest house wrapped in shadows and fear, a woman screamed into the night. The midwife, shaking from the storm and the intensity of the birth, muttered an ominous phrase. "He will be a child of darkness." Duca Mandich, clutching her newborn son, glared at her with fire in her eyes and corrected, "Number, he will be a child of light." That newborn was Nikola Tesla. The story of his birth became legend not only in his family but among those who would later come to worship the man as a prophet of science. Some dismissed it as folklore. Others, knowing what Tesla would become, whispered that the storm was not coincidence, it was the universe announcing his arrival. Tesla's family was a curious blend of the mystical and the practical. His father, Milutin Tesla, was a Serbian Orthodox priest and a writer, a man who wielded words like weapons and believed in the power of faith and discipline. He wanted Nikola to follow in his footsteps, to become a priest, perhaps a bishop, but Nikola had no interest in sermons or scripture. His fascination lay in forces unseen, energies unspoken. His mother, Duca, was illiterate but gifted an inventor in her own right, who crafted household tools and mechanical devices by instinct. Tesla would later write that he inherited his mind from his father, but his spirit of invention from his mother. From an early age, Nikola displayed signs of something unusual. He had a photographic memory so sharp it bordered on the supernatural. He could recite entire pages of books after reading them once. He saw images in his mind so vividly that he often confused them with reality. He later described having hallucinations of light and visions that would appear without warning, often triggered by strong emotion or sound. These were not mere dreams, they were flashes of electricity, moving gears, glowing shapes, machines not yet invented. At age 5, his brother Dane died in a riding accident, thrown violently from a horse. Tesla witnessed the tragedy and was never the same. He became withdrawn, prone to long silences and sudden bursts of imagination. His family believed he was gifted. Some villagers believed he was cursed. All agreed he was different. He once tried to harness the wind with a homemade turbine crafted from a spinning umbrella. It tore apart spectacularly, much to the amusement of neighbors. But Tesla didn't laugh. He was angry not at failure, but at the world's refusal to work according to his imagination. At age 9, he read about Niagara Falls and declared he would one day tame it and turn its water into light. Decades later, he would do exactly that. Even as a child, Tesla began experimenting with mechanical devices. He made small engines, constructed models of water wheels, and speculated about energy from the air. He believed that if he could just understand the laws of nature, he could bend them. And so, while most boys in Smiljan were herding sheep or playing in the woods, Nikola Tesla was trying to build perpetual motion machines from scraps. His imagination was relentless. He once became obsessed with the idea that everything in the universe had a frequency, and if one could match that frequency, anything could be manipulated from metal to mines. He began testing this idea by snapping his fingers at different rhythms and watching the response of animals, water, even other people. Most thought he was playing. He was not. His schooling was a mixed bag. He excelled in mathematics and physics but was prone to illness, some real, some perhaps psychosomatic. He would fall into long periods of fever, during which he claimed to see abstract visions, sometimes of numbers, sometimes of mechanical forms. These visions frightened him, but they also became the seeds of invention. Later, he would say that many of his machines came to him in dreams, fully formed. Tesla's childhood was marked by contradictions of mind, grounded in science and a soul haunted by mystery. Even then, he was caught between light and shadow, reason and intuition. And always above him, the storm lingered. As Nikola Tesla entered adolescence, the strange brilliance of his mind only intensified. What others saw as talent, he lived as torment. His thoughts moved faster than he could write them, and images came to him with such clarity that he often felt more at home in his inner world than in reality. He called it a mental theater, where machines assembled themselves and ideas played out like live performances before his eyes. While most students memorized facts, Tesla designed entire engines in his imagination, testing them without touching a single tool. His memory was legendary even among his early teachers. At the Higher Real Gymnasium in Karlovac, Tesla could recite entire books word for word after a single reading. He mastered 6 languages before adulthood: Serbo, Croatian, German, English, French, Italian, and Latin. But it wasn't mere memorization that set him apart, it was synthesis. He could connect disparate ideas across subjects, linking a concept from physics to a passage in poetry or a metaphor in literature to a mechanical principle. It made him a fascinating student and an impossible one to teach. Tesla's mind operated on patterns, numbers, and symmetry. He was drawn to things in threes, had an irrational compulsion to do certain tasks 3 times, like circling a building thrice before entering. He hated round objects with holes, such as earrings or pearls, and could not stand touching hair. Some now suggest he may have had symptoms of obsessive-compulsive disorder, or perhaps even a high-functioning form of autism. But to his contemporaries, he was simply odd. He also suffered from intense episodes of what he described as flashes of light that would appear in his vision. These weren't simple migraines or tricks of the eye. They were complex geometric patterns, equations, glowing forms that hovered in front of him like projections. At times, he could not distinguish the real from the imagined. Yet instead of fearing them, Tesla learned to use them. He began consciously controlling the visions, turning them into tools for invention. He once said, "Invention is the most important product of man's creative brain. Its ultimate purpose is the complete mastery of mind over the material world." But not all was genius and glory. Tesla's adolescence was also marked by illness and despair. During his second year of high school, he contracted cholera and was bedridden for 9 months. Doctors gave him days to live, and his father, finally understanding the depth of his son's passion, promised that if he recovered, he could attend the best engineering school in the empire. That promise may have saved his life. Tesla clung to it like a lifeline, and when he finally recovered, his ambition burned brighter than ever. At age 17, he began studies at the Austrian Polytechnic in Graz. There, he immersed himself in mathematics, physics, and mechanical engineering. He was a star student during his first year, often working from 3 a.m. until 11 p.m., with barely a break. His professors warned his father that the pace would kill him. Tesla didn't care. He was driven not by grades or approval, but by a thirst to understand the universe's deepest secrets. It was in Graz that he first encountered the Gram dynamoa device that converted electrical energy into mechanical motion. Watching it in action, Tesla suddenly imagined reversing the process. What if one could create a machine that turned mechanical motion into electricity, using alternating current instead of direct current? He saw it immediately, not just the idea, but the design. It would become the foundation of his greatest invention. But at the time, no one took the thought seriously. Tesla's time in Graz did not end gloriously. By his 3rd year, he had grown disillusioned with the rigidity of academic life and had developed a habit of gambling, losing his tuition money, and even pawning his belongings. Ashamed, he cut ties with his family and disappeared. For a time, he lived in poverty, drifting across cities, doing menial work, and recovering from a nervous breakdown. These years are still poorly documented, but Tesla himself described them as a dark period of doubt and suffering, yet also of transformation. The storm that had marked his birth seemed to follow him, but he would not be consumed by it. Instead, he would learn to channel it, to ride its lightning, and to bend it to his will. Even in his lowest moments, he never stopped dreaming of energy that could move the world. By the early 1880s, Nikola Tesla had drifted far from the world of structured academia. After leaving Graz in disgrace and disappearing from the radar of his professors and family, He surfaced in Prague in 1880, attempting to enroll at Charles Ferdinand University. Though he was unable to formally attend, he arrived too late in the term and lacked the necessary prerequisites in Greek and Czech. Tesla continued to attend lectures unofficially. He studied philosophy, mathematics, and physics with the intensity of a man possessed. These weren't just academic interests for him. They were pieces of a cosmic puzzle he was determined to solve. Tesla was developing a growing obsession with the idea of energy transmission. He believed that the forces driving the universe were connected by patterns, that electricity wasn't merely a tool, it was the key to unlocking the secrets of nature. Long before phrases like wireless power or global energy network became science fiction tropes, Tesla was sketching them in his notebooks. He saw a world where machines communicated across oceans without wires, where cities were lit not by coal and fire, but by the invisible hum of transmitted energy. To most people of the time, these were dreams bordering on madness. To Tesla, they were inevitable. Despite the brilliance of his mind, Tesla remained a man out of step with his surroundings. He had few close relationships and often struggled with social interactions. He dressed meticulously, walked with an upright elegance, and carried a kind of aloof grace that both impressed and alienated those around him. He could charm when he wished, especially when discussing science, but he had little patience for small talk or idle curiosity. His friendships were rare, and his affections, when they existed, were brief and intensely private. After a stint working as a draftsman in Budapest in 1881, where he suffered a second severe breakdown involving hallucinations and extreme sensitivity to sound, Tesla began to recover. It was during this period that one of the most significant moments of his life occurred. While walking in a park with a friend, he was struck by a vision, not metaphorically, but quite literally. He saw the complete design of an alternating current AC induction motor, rotating in front of his eyes. In a flash of insight, he drew it in the dirt with a stick. The motor, based on a rotating magnetic field, would become the cornerstone of the electrical revolution. In a world still gripped by direct current DC technologies and limited by their inefficiencies, Tesla had glimpsed something radically superior. In 1882, Tesla moved to Paris and began working for the Continental Edison Company. There, he demonstrated his abilities as an electrical engineer, often fixing complex machines with intuitive skill. But even while immersed in Edison's DC systems, Tesla could not shake his belief that AC was the future. He attempted to pitch his idea for the induction motor, but was met with skepticism and polite indifference. At the time, no one could conceive how alternating current, unpredictable, oscillating, potentially dangerous, could be harnessed safely and practically. Tesla, undeterred, continued refining his design. His life in Paris was modest, and his salary was humble, but his thoughts were grandiose. He wrote obsessively in notebooks, not just about technical plans, but about energy fields, vibrations, wireless communication, and machines that could tap into the Earth's natural frequencies. It was here that the seeds of his more esoteric ideas, those that would later earn him labels like mad genius or prophet, began to take root. In 1883, Tesla was sent to Strasbourg to repair a malfunctioning DC generator installed by Edison's company. After resolving the issue, he used the extra time and space to secretly build a prototype of his AC motor. He demonstrated it privately to a few people, but without backing. The invention remained a marvel only to himself. It became painfully clear Europe would not be the place to realize his vision. In 1884, with little money, a head full of inventions, and a letter of recommendation allegedly saying, "I know two great men, and you are one of them. The other is this young man," Tesla boarded a ship to the United States. The journey was rough, was robbed, had his luggage stolen, and reportedly arrived in New York with only 4 cents to his name. But none of that mattered. He had one goal: meet Thomas Edison. He was 28 years old, painfully thin, full of dreams, and ready to reshape the world. In June 1884, Nikola Tesla stepped off the ship SS City of Richmond onto the docks of New York Harbor with a suitcase full of calculations, a few articles of clothing, and the weight of his dreams pressed firmly against the skyline of Manhattan. He had arrived in America with barely a cent in his pocket, just four, to be exact, along with a handful of poems, a schematic for a flying machine, and a letter of recommendation from Charles Batchelor, his former employer in Paris. That letter, addressed to Thomas Edison, read, "My dear Edison, I know two great men, and you are one of them. The other is this young man." Armed with little more than that glowing endorsement and an intense, unwavering belief in his own vision, Tesla soon found himself face to face with one of the most famous inventors of the age. Edison, already a celebrated figure known as the Wizard of Menlo Park, was a practical man, devoted to experimentation and results rather than theory and elegance. He valued rugged invention over abstract genius. When Tesla walked into his office with his sharply tailored European manners and his obsession with alternating current, Edison was skeptical but intrigued. At the time, Edison's direct current, DC electrical systems, were beginning to light up New York. However, DC had serious limitations. It could not travel long distances without significant power loss, requiring power stations every few blocks. Tesla saw the flaws immediately and proposed a radical alternative alternating current, AC, which could be transmitted over great distances with minimal loss. But Edison wasn't interested. In fact, he considered AC dangerous, impractical, and un-American, often referring to it as a damn theory. Despite their philosophical differences, Edison hired Tesla, assigning him to improve the performance of DC generators and motors. Tesla threw himself into the work with characteristic zeal, claiming he redesigned Edison's generators entirely and improved their efficiency. According to Tesla's own later account, Edison promised him $50,000, an astronomical sum at the time, if he succeeded. But when Tesla returned with his finished improvements and requested the reward, Edison reportedly laughed and said, "Tesla, you don't understand our American humor." The betrayal cut deeply. Tesla, idealistic and unaccustomed to business trickery, felt humiliated. He resigned immediately. The incident became the seed of a lifelong rivalry, not only between two men, but between two electrical systems, AC and DC, that would soon clash in one of the most dramatic technological battles of the 19th century. Out of work and out of money, Tesla found himself digging ditches for $2 a day to survive. It was a humiliating turn for a man who just weeks earlier had been redesigning the future of electrical engineering. But even in the mud and filth of New York's trenches, Tesla's mind stayed fixed on the vision of a world powered by alternating current. Eventually, his fortunes turned. Tesla met two investors, Alfred S. Brown and Charles F. Peck, who were intrigued by his ideas and recognized his brilliance. With their backing, Tesla founded the Tesla Electric Light and Manufacturing Company in 1886. Though the company initially focused on arc lighting systems for street lamps, of the few places Tesla's AC ideas could find a foothold, he continued developing his dream of a complete AC power system. In 1887, he built the first working prototype of an induction motor powered by alternating current, a design so revolutionary, so elegant, that it would soon change the world. With this invention, Tesla had solved the primary obstacle in making AC practical, a motor that could run efficiently, safely, and powerfully on alternating current. Tesla's motor caught the attention of George Westinghouse, a wealthy industrialist and inventor himself, who immediately saw its potential. Westinghouse acquired the patents and brought Tesla on board. Together, they would take on Edison in what history would later call the War of Currents. As Tesla's inventions began to gain momentum, Edison retaliated by launching a public campaign to discredit AC power. He staged gruesome demonstrations showing animals electrocuted with alternating current, even contributing to the design of the first electric chair using AC just to paint it as deadly. But Tesla stayed focused, his gaze fixed not on Edison, but on the possibilities that lay ahead. In less than a decade, Tesla had gone from a penniless immigrant digging ditches to the key figure in a revolution that would power the modern world. And though his battles with Edison were far from over, the tide had begun to turn in his favor. For the first time, Tesla's stormonts, a symbol of his turbulent genius, began to illuminate the world. By 1888, Nikola Tesla had found the ally he needed to take his radical vision to the next level: George Westinghouse. A self-made inventor and businessman with an eye for disruptive technology, Westinghouse saw in Tesla's patents not just potential, but revolution. The alternating current system Tesla had devised centered around his elegant induction motor, and transformers offered a compelling solution to one of the most pressing problems in electrical engineering: how to deliver electricity over long distances without catastrophic power loss. Tesla's AC system, unlike Edison's direct current, could be transmitted at high voltages with minimal resistance, and then stepped down with transformers for safe use. This breakthrough meant that instead of building a power station every mile, you could have one massive plant delivering energy to an entire region. For an industrialist like Westinghouse, it wasn't just science, it was scale. And scale meant business. In 1888, Westinghouse acquired Tesla's key AC patents for a lump sum of $60,000, split between cash and stock, and promised a royalty of $2.5 per horsepower of electricity sold. At the time, this was an extraordinary deal, and it made Tesla briefly wealthy. More importantly, it gave him the resources, laboratories, and manufacturing support to move from theory to action. The War of Currents had officially begun. Edison was not pleased. With his personal fame and the vast reach of his Edison Electric Company, soon to become General Electric, he launched an aggressive campaign to portray alternating current as dangerous and unstable. Demonstrations of animals electrocuted with ACAVs, dogs, even an elephant named Topsy were part of a calculated media war. Edison's goal was clear: frighten the public into rejecting Westinghouse and Tesla's vision. Tesla, for his part, refused to stoop to such tactics. While Edison was literally frying cats for reporters, Tesla was on stage at lectures and exhibitions, calmly allowing AC to flow through his body as he lit lamps and made sparks dance in his palms. He used his own body to demonstrate the safety and potential of his system, often accompanied by theatrical flourishes that bordered on magic. These demonstrations were not just science, they were performance art. Tesla had understood something Edison hadn't. Electricity wasn't just useful, it was spectacular. In 1891, Tesla unveiled what would become one of his signature inventions, the Tesla coil. Designed to generate high voltage, low current, high-frequency alternating current electricity, the device could create stunning displays of electrical arcs, luminous bulbs, and wireless lighting. But more than just a party trick, the Tesla coil was a core component of his deeper vision, where energy could be transmitted through the air, without wires, to any point on Earth. That same year, Tesla became a naturalized U.S. citizen and gave a public lecture to the American Institute of Electrical Engineers, where he laid out his grand design for a global AC infrastructure. His ideas seemed fantastical to many, but for a growing group of industrialists, engineers, and visionaries, Tesla was becoming the voice of the future. The real test came in 1893, when Westinghouse, backed by Tesla's technology, was awarded the contract to power the world's Columbian Exposition in Chicago. It was the first time in history an entire fair was illuminated by electricity, and Tesla's AC system dazzled millions of visitors. Giant arches of glowing light, moving platforms, and electric fountains created a futuristic spectacle that overshadowed anything Edison had ever achieved. The exposition was more than an event, it was a declaration. AC had arrived. Shortly afterward, Westinghouse and Tesla took on their greatest challenge yet, the Niagara Falls Power Project. For centuries, people had dreamed of harnessing the power of the mighty falls, and now, with Tesla's polyphase AC system, that dream was possible. In 1896, the first long-distance transmission lines carried power from Niagara Falls to Buffalo, New York, over 20 miles away. It was a technical marvel, a triumph of theory turned into practice, and a defining moment in modern energy history. Tesla's dream of illuminating the world with alternating current had come true. Cities lit up, factories thrived, and the electrical grid as we know it today began to take shape. Yet despite the magnitude of his success, Tesla's relationship with wealth remained complicated. When Westinghouse faced financial trouble due to the crushing royalties owed, Tesla, believing in the greater good of the technology, reportedly tore up his contract, forfeiting millions. It was a gesture of idealism that cost him dearly in the long run. Even as alternating current transformed the world, Tesla remained restless. He had conquered the current war, but his eyes were already on something bigger. The transmission of energy through the earth itself, no wires, no limits. For most people, what he had achieved was already miraculous. But for Tesla, it was merely the beginning. By the early 1890s, the electrical world was divided into two camps: direct current, DC, championed by Thomas Edison, and alternating current, AC, backed by Nikola Tesla and George Westinghouse. What had begun as a debate over engineering principles had now escalated into a full-blown industrial war battle, not only of technology, but of ego, ideology, and public perception. At stake was nothing less than the power grid of the future. Edison had built his empire on DC, and he fought tooth and nail to defend it. He argued that alternating current was unstable, unpredictable, and dangerous. To make his point quite literally, he orchestrated public demonstrations in which animals were electrocuted using AC current. These exhibitions, gruesome and theatrical, were intended to instill fear and doubt in the minds of ordinary people. One of the most infamous outcomes of this campaign was the development of the electric chair, powered by AC, introduced as a method of capital punishment in 1890. Though Edison didn't invent it, he supported its use as a strategic move to associate Tesla's system with death. Tesla, in contrast, responded not with outrage, but with elegant showmanship. He held public lectures and demonstrations where he stood calmly in front of crowds, allowing alternating current to pass through his body to light bulbs, perform tricks, and generate luminous effects. At a time when most people were still terrified of electricity, Tesla made it dance. With theatrical flair and scientific clarity, he demystified the invisible forces that Edison tried to vilify. "I have let the current pass through me," he would later say, "to show it is not deadly." Westinghouse, too, understood the importance of optics and public trust. He and Tesla knew that if they could win over the people and the major contracts, they could change everything. Their biggest opportunity came in 1893, when the organizers of the World's Columbian Exposition in Chicago needed a company to provide electric lighting for the fair. General Electric, Edison's newly rebranded firm, submitted a bid using DC systems, but Westinghouse, with Tesla's AC patents, underbid them. The result was electrifying literally. Over 100,000 incandescent bulbs, powered by alternating current, lit up the Chicago night. It was the first major public display of AC on such a grand scale. The fair became a glowing advertisement for Tesla's vision. Millions of visitors walked beneath the light of Tesla-powered systems, marveling at what seemed like science fiction made real. It wasn't just a technical victory, it was a cultural one. AC had captured the imagination of the public. But even as the lights of Chicago dazzled the world, Tesla remained focused on a bigger goal, proving the superiority of AC in the realm of industrial power generation. That opportunity came with the Niagara Falls Power Project. For decades, engineers and dreamers had imagined tapping into the raw energy of the falls to generate electricity. In 1893, Tesla and Westinghouse were awarded the contract to build the first hydroelectric power plant using AC. It was a monumental task not just in engineering terms, but in symbolism. If they succeeded, it would be the ultimate validation of Tesla's system. And succeed they did. In 1896, power from Niagara Falls was transmitted 26 miles to Buffalo, New York, the first long-distance transmission of electricity in history. The event marked the definitive end of the War of Currents. AC had triumphed. Within a few years, cities across the United States and Europe began adopting Tesla's system. Edison's stubborn resistance faded, and General Electric quietly transitioned to AC. Tesla's ideas had become the backbone of modern civilization. His polyphase system of alternating current remains the foundation of our global power infrastructure to this day. Yet, despite the magnitude of his victory, Tesla did not celebrate like a conqueror. He saw the triumph not as an end, but as a beginning. While Edison had built a business, Tesla had sparked a revolution. The War of Currents revealed more than a clash of technologies. It exposed two visions of the world. Edison's was one of control, patents, and proprietary systems. Tesla's was one of openness, energy for all, and the boundless potential of science. For a brief, shining moment, it seemed that Tesla's idealism had won. But as history would soon show, the world of industry was far less forgiving than the world of ideas. In 1899, Nikola Tesla, already a figure of scientific legend, left New York and journeyed to the high plains of Colorado Springs. The move wasn't just about geography, it was about vision. Tesla had grown restless in the cities, constrained by skeptical investors, crowded laboratories, and the constant thrum of business interests. He needed isolation, altitude, and most importantly, space. Colorado Springs, with its dry air, open land, and reputation for natural electrical activity, offered the perfect environment for his next leap into the unknown. He arrived with one goal: to study the secrets of wireless energy transmission and Earth's electrical resonance. The idea, wild as it sounded, was deceptively simple in Tesla's mind. If the Earth could conduct electricity, and if it had natural frequencies like a tuning fork, then it could be used to transmit massive amounts of it without wires across any distance. What Marconi was attempting to do with wireless telegraphy, Tesla wanted to do with electricity itself. With funding from industrialist John Jacob Astor IV, who would tragically die a few years later aboard the Titanic, Tesla constructed a laboratory on the outskirts of town, complete with the largest Tesla coil the world had ever seen. The coil was a monstrous machine, capable of generating millions of volts. Its crown was a 50-foot copper sphere perched on a mast. The entire lab was rigged for high-voltage experiments, grounded into the earth to maximize conductivity. Locals called it the lightning factory. And lightning it did produce. Tesla's experiments sent bolts of artificial lightning into the sky, some reportedly reaching 100 feet in length. The crackle of energy could be heard for miles. Residents reported that their metal tools sparked unexpectedly, that electric lights glowed without being connected to anything, and that horses refused to approach the facility. At one point, Tesla caused a local power outage by accidentally overloading the power station. When confronted, he reportedly apologized with a sheepish smile and then asked for more power. But Tesla wasn't just chasing spectacle. His work in Colorado Springs was guided by an obsessive pursuit of Earth's natural resonant frequency. He believed that if he could find it, he could create a system to transmit power globally through the ground itself. In one experiment, he claimed to have lit 200 light bulbs over 25 miles away, wirelessly. Though never replicated or fully documented, Tesla insisted this was proof of concept. He kept detailed notes, many of which read like a mixture of technical manual and visionary manifesto. One night, as Tesla sat recording data from one of his coils, he reportedly observed a strange pattern-regular signals that he believed were not of earthly origin. He speculated that he might be receiving communications from another planet. Though modern science attributes this to natural radio interference or celestial phenomena, Tesla was serious. He even speculated about intelligent life on Mars. "The feeling is constantly growing on me," he later wrote, "that I had been the first to hear the greeting of one planet to another." This was Tesla at his most brilliant and most eccentric. His discoveries in Colorado Springs laid the groundwork for future innovations in radio, radar, and remote sensing. But they also marked the beginning of his drift into more speculative and isolated territory. He was no longer just an inventor. He was becoming a prophet of energy. As 1900 approached, Tesla left Colorado Springs with a head full of ideas and trunks full of notes. He had not proved everything he hoped, but he was more convinced than ever that the Earth itself could become a conductor of limitless power. He had glimpsed something vast and strange in the lightning and resonance, something no one else dared to see. It was time to build something bigger, something that could transmit energy around the world. He called it Wardenclyffe. The storm was coming again, and Tesla was ready to catch it. In the spring of 1901, Nikola Tesla stood on the north shore of Long Island, gazing across a windswept plot of land in the sleepy town of Shoreham. This unremarkable stretch of earth, overlooking the Atlantic Ocean, would soon become the site of his most ambitious and ultimately tragic experiment. It was here that Tesla would attempt to build the Wardenclyffe Tower, a towering transmitter of wireless power, a beacon of global communication, and the physical embodiment of his most revolutionary dream to provide free energy to the entire planet. Tesla had returned from Colorado Springs with a burning conviction. He could transmit electricity wirelessly through the Earth itself. In his mind, Wardenclyffe would be the first node in a worldwide network, capable not only of powering homes without wires, but also of transmitting messages, images, and even weather control signals. When wireless is fully applied, Tesla predicted, the Earth will be converted into a huge brain. He secured funding from J.P. Morgan, one of the most powerful financiers of the era, with a proposal to build a world wireless system that could outcompete Marconi's radio telegraphy. But what Tesla didn't reveal, at least not explicitly, was that his ambitions went far beyond mere communication. He wanted to transmit power itself. In his mind, energy should not be sold by the watt. It should be as free and abundant as the air. Construction began that same year. The centerpiece was a 187-foot wooden tower with a massive copper dome, rooted deep into the ground by iron pipes sunk hundreds of feet into the earth. Below it, A labyrinth of tunnels and chambers housed Tesla's experimental equipment. The tower resembled something out of science fiction, part lighthouse, part cathedral, part alien antenna. Locals were baffled. Some feared it was a death ray. Others called it a madman's monument. Tesla worked feverishly, often skipping meals and sleeping in the lab. He believed he was on the verge of changing the world again. At times, he claimed to have already achieved partial success lighting bulbs wirelessly, sending energy pulses into the Earth, and even detecting signals from Mars. But he was also facing increasing pressure. Morgan, a businessman to the bone, grew impatient. He wanted results he could monetize. Tesla's dream of free global power? That wasn't in the business plan. In December 1901, disaster struck. Marconi, using a simpler and cheaper system, successfully transmitted a wireless signal across the Atlantic, an achievement Tesla had also been aiming for. The press hailed Marconi as the father of radio. Morgan, sensing a better investment, began withdrawing support. Worse, Tesla's construction costs at Wardenclyffe ballooned. The more he tried to compensate with upgrades and improvements, the more expensive the project became. Tesla pleaded with Morgan for more funding, writing long, impassioned letters filled with technical jargon and cosmic promises. "I have made the most valuable discovery," he insisted. But Morgan was unmoved. "If anyone else can do what you say," he reportedly told Tesla, "let them do it." By 1905, construction at Wardenclyffe had ground to a halt. Tesla laid off his staff and began to spiral into depression and financial ruin. The tower stood unfinished, an eerie monument to lost potential. In 1917, it was demolished for scrap metal, the land sold to pay debts. Tesla watched silently as the dream was torn down, his cathedral of energy reduced to rubble. Yet even in failure, Wardenclyffe was ahead of its time. The concepts Tesla explored, resonant energy, wireless transmission, global communication, would resurface in technologies like Wi-Fi, cell networks, and power beaming research. He had tried to build the 21st century with the tools of the 19th. Wardenclyffe marked a turning point in Tesla's life. No longer the golden boy of invention, he became increasingly isolated, mocked by rivals, and haunted by what might have been. Still, in his notebooks and interviews, he clung to the belief that the dream was not dead. "The day will soon come," he wrote, "when man will harness the energies of nature and cause them to work for him." The tower was gone, but the storm in his mind raged on. While the towering dream of Wardenclyffe was slowly crumbling under financial strain, Nikola Tesla was already years ahead in another area of invention that would once again show the world how far his imagination reached beyond his time. In 1898, before wireless communication was even fully accepted by the mainstream scientific community, Tesla walked into Madison Square Garden with a wooden box, a tiny boat, and a remote control. The event was the Electrical Exhibition, and it was crowded with engineers, reporters, skeptics, and curious minds. In the center of the indoor pool stood Tesla's small boat, shaped like a miniature ironclad, loaded with hidden antennas, gears, and relays. With a flourish, Tesla lifted his control box, wired with switches, buttons, and coil sand, began to send signals through the air. The boat responded instantly. It turned left, then right. Its lights blinked on command. It stopped, moved backward, and accelerated, all without wires, all powered by radio waves. The crowd was stunned. Some believed it was magic. Others, in an age only beginning to trust electricity, accused Tesla of trickery. A few even insisted the boat must have housed a tiny trained monkey. But Tesla, ever the showman scientist, invited observers to inspect the boat and the controller. Everything was real. What they had witnessed was the birth of remote control. Tesla called the invention a teleautomaton, But what he was really unveiling was the blueprint for what we now recognize as robotics, drones, and autonomous systems. He filed U.S. patent number 613,809 method of and apparatus for controlling mechanism of moving vessels, or via CLESA foundational document for modern automation. Beyond mere novelty, Tesla envisioned grand applications. He imagined fleets of remote-controlled warships, reducing human casualties in combat. He proposed submarines that could be steered from land. He even spoke of mechanical soldiers guided by radio, capable of moving and reacting without a single man on the battlefield. War will be reduced to a mere spectacle, he declared, like a chess game played by automatons. But as was so often the case with Tesla, the world wasn't ready. Military officials dismissed the invention as a toy. Industrialists couldn't see a path to profit. The press covered it with amazement, but failed to grasp its full implications. Once again, Tesla had pulled the curtain back on the future and received polite applause rather than the support he needed to take it further. Still, Tesla knew what he had achieved. In a time when people were only beginning to grasp that voices could travel through airwaves, he had sent not just information but commands, intentions, logic, behavior. He had proven that machines could be given intelligence, say not consciousness, but response, autonomy, function without a human hand. In private, Tesla spoke of even greater ambitions. He imagined flying machines controlled remotely, power stations guiding mobile devices around the world, a planet where the nervous system of technology was wireless and invisible. As soon as a machine is capable of acting in response to stimuli from its environment, he wrote, it will be in the broadest sense a living thing. The invention of the radio-controlled boat was more than a technological first-teat, was a philosophical turning point. Tesla was not merely interested in transmitting power, but in transmitting thought. He was looking toward a world in which man and machine would interact at the speed of light, across oceans, without wires. In a time of coal and telegraphs, he was already dreaming of drones, AI, and the Internet of Things. And yet, once again, the world moved on without fully understanding what he had given it. The remote-controlled boat was retired to storage, and Tesla, as always, turned his gaze forward to frequencies unclaimed, energies untapped, and ideas no one else dared chase. As the 20th century unfolded, Nikola Tesla's career entered a strange twilighten era of extraordinary ideas, tantalizing inventions, and a growing sense that the world was no longer catching up to him, but deliberately turning away. No longer bound to laboratories by investors or industrial partners, Tesla grew more secretive, more speculative, and more isolated. His thoughts turned increasingly toward inventions the public wasn't ready for, or perhaps wasn't meant to have. At the heart of these ideas was his enduring obsession: wireless power. Wardenclyffe may have been dismantled, but Tesla never gave up on his belief that energy could be transmitted without wires. He believed that by tuning to the Earth's resonant frequency, vast amounts of power could be broadcast through the ground and air to any point on the globe. Power for homes, machines, even aircraft. It is not a dream, he insisted. It is a simple feat of scientific electrical engineering. He envisioned a future where towers like Wardenclyffe would dot the planet, beaming free electricity to anyone with a receiver. In Tesla's world, utility companies were obsolete. Wires were ancient relics, and the Earth itself was the ultimate battery. But this vision challenged the very foundation of industrial capitalism. Free energy? No profit? Tesla's ideas were not only radical, they were dangerous to the business models of powerful men. Denied funding, Tesla's wireless energy theories remained largely theoretical. Still, he persisted, claiming in later interviews that he had successfully lit wireless lamps from miles away and could even transmit energy through the atmosphere. His descriptions grew more cryptic, and he guarded his blueprints with increasing paranoia. The line between genius and eccentricity began to blur. In parallel, Tesla turned his attention to flight, not just powered flight, which the Wright brothers would soon achieve, but electrically powered, silent, and even vertical takeoff aircraft. He sketched out designs for disc-shaped flying machines that eerily resemble modern concepts of UFOs. These flying torpedoes, as he sometimes called them, were meant to glide on electrical fields, powered by wireless energy and guided by remote control. Tesla hinted that these machines could be used for defense or offense. That idea fed into his most controversial and mysterious concept, the teleforce weapon, which the press quickly dubbed the death ray. According to Tesla, this was not a traditional laser or explosive, but a focused energy beam capable of destroying aircraft, armies, or entire battalions from miles away. He claimed it could bring down a fleet of 10,000 enemy planes in a flash, without a single bullet fired. The principle, he said, was based on directed energy and high-voltage electrostatic propulsion. Unlike earlier inventions, he kept the details vague, perhaps to protect the idea, or perhaps because it existed more in theory than reality. In 1934, Tesla went public with the concept, offering to build the weapon for any government that would use it defensively. He approached several nations, including the United States, the Soviet Union, the United Kingdom, and Yugoslavia. Some were intrigued, none committed. Whether this was due to disbelief, political fear, or simply lack of technical understanding, no one gave him the support he needed. To this day, no working model of the death ray has ever been found. Still, rumors swirled. Was Tesla simply boasting? Was he covering up a real invention too powerful to share? After his death in 1943, the FBI confiscated his papers under the Alien Property Custodian Activin, though Tesla was a U.S. citizen. Conspiracy theories have flourished ever since, claiming that Tesla had uncovered secrets of anti-gravity, space energy, or weapons beyond comprehension. What's certain is this: Tesla believed he had unlocked forces that could both elevate humanity and destroy it. He once wrote, "Science is but a perversion of itself, unless it has, as its ultimate goal, the betterment of humanity." But as he grew older, he seemed increasingly convinced that others would use his discoveries not for progress, but for profit or power. By the 1930s, Tesla was no longer a celebrity scientist, but a recluse, living in New York hotels, feeding pigeons in the park, and issuing increasingly surreal press releases. To the public, he was the eccentric inventor whose mind had perhaps flown too far. To historians and futurists, he was a man decades, perhaps centuries ahead of his time. Whether the death ray ever existed, as Tesla claimed, remains a mystery. But what cannot be denied is that in the quiet corners of his mind, Tesla was still building, still dreaming not of war or wealth, but of a world energized by forces no one yet understood. While Nikola Tesla is best known for his dazzling work with electricity and radio, some of his most intriguing and lesser-known inventions came not from lightning in the sky, but from vibrations deep within the earth hand, from the quiet, unassuming behavior of fluids and motion. Among these were his mechanical oscillator, sometimes referred to in legend as the earthquake machine, and his elegantly simple but mysterious device, the Tesla valve. In the mid-1890s, Tesla began experimenting with a compact steam-powered mechanical oscillator in his New York lab. At first glance, the device appeared simply piston oscillating rapidly within a chamber, but Tesla believed it had extraordinary potential. It was designed not just as an engine, but as a precision tool to generate and manipulate mechanical resonance. He claimed that by tuning this device to the natural frequency of any object, whether a piece of metal, a bridge, or even the earth itself. He could induce powerful vibrations. The story that immortalized the oscillator came from Tesla himself. He recounted that one evening, while testing the device, he attached it to a metal support beam in his lab. As the machine vibrated, Tesla noticed a subtle shudder in the floor. Then, the building began to shake. Cracks appeared in windows. Plaster rained from the ceiling. Alarmed, he allegedly smashed the device with a hammer, just as police and ambulances arrived, responding to what was believed to be a minor earthquake in the neighborhood. Tesla, brushing dust from his shoulders, supposedly told a colleague, "If I had kept it running for a few more minutes, I could have brought down the building." Whether this dramatic tale was entirely true or somewhat embellished, the core technology was real. Tesla's oscillator demonstrated the phenomenon of mechanical resonance, the same principle that allows a soprano's voice to shatter a wine glass. He believed this effect could be used for everything from generating clean mechanical energy to probing the structure of the Earth. He even suggested that earthquakes could be triggered or prevented by properly tuned resonance devices. But as with many of Tesla's mechanical inventions, the oscillator was never fully developed or commercialized. It was overshadowed by the sexier, more profitable world of electricity, and remained a footnote in his broader legacy. Still, echoes of the idea live on in modern technologies like ultrasonic devices, seismic wave research, and vibrational energy systems. Equally fascinating, though far more obscure, was Tesla's invention of the valvular conduit, better known today as the Tesla valve. Patented in 1920, this passive one-way valve had no moving parts, just a series of cleverly designed flow channels that allowed fluid to move freely in one direction, while resisting flow in the opposite direction. It looked like a sequence of teardrop-shaped loops connected by a main channel, almost organic in its elegance. To the untrained eye, it might seem like little more than a quirky bit of pipework. But the Tesla valve was a masterclass in fluid dynamics and asymmetrical design. Its simplicity belied its brilliance. In modern terms, it functions like a diode for fluids guiding flow directionally without mechanical parts. Tesla believed it could be used in a variety of systems, including engines, pumps, and cooling networks. And while the world ignored it for nearly a century, the Tesla valve has recently gained new relevance. In the 21st century, scientists and engineers revisited Tesla's design, realizing its potential in microfluidic devices, biomedical implants, and spacecraft systems anywhere you need precise flow control without relying on moving parts that could fail. In 2021, researchers at NYU and other institutions published papers demonstrating that Tesla's valve operated surprisingly efficiently, even by today's standards. These two inventions, the oscillator and the valve, represent something essential about Tesla's mind. He didn't see boundaries between disciplines. He didn't care whether he was working with electricity, mechanics, sound, or fluid. To him, everything in the universe was vibration, resonance, flow. He sought the patterns behind the chaos, the symmetries in motion. And perhaps most poignantly, these inventions remind us that some of Tesla's greatest ideas weren't flashy towers or lightning bolts, but quiet, precise, almost invisible mechanism stools for shaping the physical world through elegant, resonant design. Long after his more famous technologies lit up cities and stunned crowds, the soft pulse of a piston and the curve of a fluid valve continued humming in the background, proof that Tesla's genius flowed not just in bursts, but in rhythms. As the 19th century came to a close, the scientific world was thrown into a frenzy by the discovery of a new kind of invisible light X-rays. In 1895, German physicist Wilhelm Röntgen revealed the existence of these mysterious rays capable of penetrating flesh and revealing the skeleton within. The revelation was shocking. almost magical. And Röntgen was soon awarded the first Nobel Prize in Physics for his groundbreaking work. But Nikola Tesla was already there. In fact, he had been experimenting with similar phenomena years before Röntgen's announcement, using his high-frequency electrical devices to produce what he called invisible radiations. Tesla had been photographing bones and internal structures, observing peculiar burns on his skin after exposure to his vacuum tubes, and documenting strange photographic effects that modern scientists now recognize as X-ray images. Tesla graciously congratulated Röntgen on the discovery, even as he quietly noted that his own experiments had touched the same forces. In typical fashion, he didn't contest the credit, saw science as a shared pursuit rather than a race for prizes. Still, history largely forgot that Tesla may have been among the first humans to create and document X-rays, even if he lacked the theoretical framework to describe them. But for Tesla, X-rays were more than just a medical curiosity. He saw them as evidence that there was an invisible world of energy all around us, waiting to be understood. He began experimenting more aggressively, using his Tesla coils and specially designed vacuum tubes to generate increasingly powerful forms of electromagnetic radiation. He produced photos of hands and skulls, not with the clarity of modern X-rays, but with eerie, ghostly shadows that suggested a realm beyond human sight. And then the accidents began. Tesla suffered burns from his apparatus, mysterious, deep tissue burns that did not blister like thermal injuries, but instead left necrotic patches that healed slowly, if at all. He reported headaches, dizziness, even temporary memory loss after prolonged exposure. But instead of retreating, he pressed forward, convinced that he was on the verge of discovering something monumental. He speculated that X-rays might be just one slice of a broader spectrum of invisible radiation. Perhaps, he suggested, there were energies even more subtle, more penetrating goes that could interact with the brain itself. In his writings and interviews, he hinted that certain frequencies might influence thoughts, emotions, or even unlock hidden potentials in the human mind. It was here that Tesla's work took on an increasingly mystical tone. He began to suggest that consciousness might not be confined to the brain, but was instead part of a larger field dome that could be tuned, like a radio signal. If electricity could pass through flesh, if light could pierce bone, could thoughts themselves be transmitted? He never claimed to have solved these riddles, but he raised questions that still intrigue scientists and philosophers alike. Some modern theorists, often straddling the line between fringe science and metaphysics, point to Tesla's X-ray experiments as the beginning of a lost branch of neuroelectric research. They wonder if Tesla glimpsed an early form of what we now call brainwave technology, electromagnetic stimulation, or even mind-machine interfaces. Tesla, after all, was not afraid to blur the lines between biology, physics, and energy. There are even whispers, most likely apocryphal, that Tesla once blacked out during an experiment and awoke with a vivid vision of an invention that would come years later, fully formed. Whether this was poetic exaggeration or a genuine altered state brought on by exposure to high-frequency radiation is unknown. Tesla rarely differentiated between the physical and the mental in his work. For him, inspiration wasn't just metaphorical, it was electric. His notes on X-rays eventually faded into obscurity, overshadowed by his more theatrical inventions. But they remain among the earliest explorations into what would later become radiology, medical imaging, and the interaction between electromagnetic fields and biology. Once again, Tesla had peered into the invisible, touched the unknown, and sparked ideas that would take the rest of the world decades to catch up with. He never patented his X-ray technologies, never sought glory from them, and never paused to rest on the credit. For Tesla, the invisible was always just the beginning. By the 1920s, The Nikola Tesla, who had once lit up the world's fairs and electrified scientific gatherings, had become a solitary figure, haunting the quiet corridors of New York City hotels. Once celebrated as the future of energy and invention, Tesla now found himself drifting from the center of technological excitement to its periphery. He was no longer the star of innovation, but rather a relic of a bygone era, eccentric, impoverished, and increasingly isolated. Tesla took up permanent residence at the Hotel New Yorker in 1933, moving into room 3327 on the 33rd floor. Though elegant in its time, the room was modest by any measure, especially for a man who had once dined with financiers, royalty, and presidents. Yet Tesla didn't care for extravagance. What he sought was seclusion and the companionship of pigeons. He had always loved animals, particularly birds, and as his social circle diminished, Tesla found solace in feeding and caring for the flocks that gathered in Bryant Park. He developed a special bond with one pure white pigeon, which he claimed visited him daily and seemed to understand him. Tesla described her not merely as a bird, but as a connection to something pure, even spiritual. "I loved that pigeon as a man loves a woman," he once confessed. "As long as I had her, there was a purpose to my life." Tesla's personal habits grew increasingly peculiar. He ate alone, always at the same table, often requesting precisely 18 clean linen napkins, which he would use methodically during the meal. He avoided touching anything that wasn't scrupulously clean and wore gloves when necessary to maintain his routines. He walked in patterns divisible by 3. Numbers, symmetry, and ritual became the architecture of his daily life. Despite his financial ruin, Tesla never stopped working. He scribbled calculations on hotel stationery, filled notebooks with speculative designs, and filed patents well into his final years, though fewer and fewer of them were taken seriously. He often claimed he was on the verge of unveiling a new source of unlimited energy, or a machine that could detect cosmic signals or manipulate gravity. Most dismissed these as the ramblings of a once great mind, now consumed by delusion. But not all his brilliance had faded. During the 1930s, Tesla still made headlines, occasionally re-emerging from his hotel to grant interviews filled with equal parts genius and enigma. On his 75th birthday, the New York Times published a glowing profile of him alongside congratulatory messages from Albert Einstein and other scientific luminaries. But even this recognition did little to revive his fortunes. Tesla lived off meager patent residuals, a modest pension from the Yugoslav government as a symbol of national pride, and the kindness of friends and former associates. At times, he was months behind on rent, yet he refused offers of charity and rejected proposals to sell his remaining patents cheaply. Pride still coursed through him, even as poverty closed in. Toward the end of his life, Tesla became increasingly paranoid. He was convinced that others, especially governments and rival inventors, were trying to steal his ideas. He claimed his notebooks contained secrets too powerful to be revealed, technologies that could alter the balance of world power. Some of these claims may have been exaggerations. Others, given Tesla's track record, are harder to dismiss outright. On the 7th of January, 1943, Nikola Tesla died alone in his room at the Hotel New Yorker. He was 86 years old. His body was found 2 days later by a maid who had ignored his "Do Not Disturb" sign. The room was quiet. The pigeon was gone. The notebooks, some full of real science, others perhaps full of dreams, were taken by the U.S. government, locked away under orders of national security. Tesla's funeral was modest, but attended by dignitaries and curious minds. In time, his legacy would be restored, his genius rediscovered, and his name elevated into the pantheon of scientific immortals. But in those last years, on the 33rd floor, Nikola Tesla was simply a man brilliant, alone, and still reaching toward the storm he had always chased. Nikola Tesla was not just a scientist. He was a performer, a showman, a conjurer of lightning and spectacle who understood that science, to truly capture the public imagination, had to dazzle. Long before TED Talks, science expos, or YouTube explainer videos, Tesla was electrifying audiences literally on the stages of lecture halls, expos, and laboratories with a flair that blended physics, poetry, and theatrical precision. Tesla's public demonstrations were legendary. In the 1890s, he would step onto a darkened stage, raise his hands, and with a flick of a switch, surround himself with arcs of crackling lightning. Sparks leapt from coils, lamps glowed wirelessly, and currents passed through his body as he calmly lit bulbs with his bare hands. He made electricity seem not just safe, but sublime, something akin to divine fire tamed by the mind of man. These weren't mere parlor tricks. They were rooted in real science. High-frequency alternating current, wireless transmission, resonant coils. But Tesla understood the psychological power of the visual. He knew that in a world where electricity was still frightening and new, a display of control over it would inspire awe, not fear. At the 1893 World's Columbian Exposition in Chicago, his AC system powered the fairgrounds and drew millions of eyes. But it was his live presentations lighting vacuum tubes wirelessly, controlling energy with gestures, that cemented his image as a wizard of modern science. Journalists wrote breathless articles, comparing him to a sorcerer or an alchemist. Audiences gasped not just at what they saw, but at the elegant figure delivering ital, impeccably dressed, and speaking in a soft, hypnotic voice. Tesla cultivated his image carefully. He was aware of the power of persona in a world driven by media. He wore tailored suits, spoke with poetic flair, and carried himself with aristocratic confidence. Yet beneath that showman's polish was a man genuinely obsessed with knowledge, deeply shy, and often lost in his own mental labyrinths. While other inventors sought patents and profit, Tesla often gave away his ideas in public lectures. He wanted recognition, yes, but not just of his inventions, of his vision. He saw himself as a kind of Prometheus, bringing fire to humanity, not for gain, but for progress. He famously said, "The present is theirs. The future, for which I really worked, is mine." Tesla's showmanship was more than self-promotion. It was a philosophy of communication. He believed that science should not be hidden in the ivory towers of academia, but brought into the public square, translated into light, sound, motion. He once lit a lamp across a room using nothing but the resonant frequency of the earth itself. It was, in essence, a prototype of modern wireless technology, but to onlookers, it was magic. Even in private demonstrations, Tesla's flair remained. In one instance, he invited Mark Twain, known of his few close friends, to stand on a platform connected to a mechanical oscillator. Twain, thrilled by the vibrating sensation, refused to get off. Tesla warned him he might regret it. Minutes later, Twain dashed off to the bathroom, victim of the device's unintended laxative effect. Both men reportedly laughed hysterically. Tesla also understood the media's hunger for drama. He gave interviews filled with poetic musings about the future wireless power, remote automation, even interplanetary communication. He spoke of tuning into the music of the universe, and once said he believed he could split the Earth in two if he chose to. Reporters lapped it up. Tesla became a paradoxical celebrity, a man of rigorous science wrapped in layers of myth. But as his fortunes faded and rivals gained commercial ground, the show lost its stage. His exhibitions became fewer, his audience smaller. His pronouncements met more often with curiosity than reverence. Still, The image he created of a man who held lightning in his hands and lit the world with a gesture never disappeared. Today, that legacy lives on in the popular imagination. Tesla's coils appear in films, video games, and music videos. His name graces a global electric car brand. His vision of science as both truth and theater remains a model for communicators who seek not just to explain the world, but to enchant it. He was the scientist as spectacle, the inventor as icon, the man who stepped into darkness and made it dance with light. Nikola Tesla's mind produced inventions at a velocity few could match, and even fewer could understand. Over his lifetime, he was granted more than 300 patents across over 24 countries each, a testament not just to ingenuity, but to a vision of a world far more advanced than the one he inhabited. These patents were more than papers filed with a bureaucracy. They were blueprints for the 20th and 21st centuries. Tesla's patents spanned a vast range of disciplines: electrical engineering, mechanical systems, fluid dynamics, telecommunications, and more. Some were practical, others speculative, but nearly all were pioneering. Many of the devices that define our modern world, motors, radios, remote controls, fluorescent lighting, and wireless communication, trace their roots, directly or conceptually, to Tesla's early work. Among the crown jewels of his patent portfolio was his polyphase alternating current system, filed in the late 1880s. These patents laid the foundation for how electricity is generated, transmitted, and used today. His induction motor, simple and rugged, remains a core component in modern appliances, industrial machines, and electric vehicles. With this alone, Tesla reshaped civilization. Then there were his high-frequency transformers, the famous Tesla coils. Though primarily used in demonstrations, these coils became foundational to future work in radio technology, RF transmission, and wireless experiments. The principle of electromagnetic resonance, first showcased with dramatic sparks and glowing tubes, would later be vital in everything from medical imaging, MRI, to wireless charging. Tesla's radio patents are another story of both triumph and injustice. In 1897, he filed fundamental patents on wireless transmission of signals. But in 1901, Guglielmo Marconi made headlines by transmitting a signal across the Atlantic, an achievement built on a foundation that Tesla insisted was already patented by him. Marconi was awarded the Nobel Prize, and Tesla sued for patent infringement. The case dragged on for decades. Only in 1943, months after Tesla's death, did the U.S. Supreme Court finally recognize Tesla's priority. It was a quiet vindication, too late for Tesla to enjoy, but undeniable in historical record. Tesla's patents also touched the world of remote control. His 1,898 patent for a radio-controlled boat was the first ever for such a device. At the time, it seemed like a novelty. Today, it is the genesis of drones, robotics, and unmanned systems. There were other, more obscure but equally fascinating designs. His electrical frequency meters, turbines, and mechanical oscillators displayed an elegance and simplicity that made them ahead of their time. His valvular conduita one-way valve with no moving parts would go unnoticed for nearly a century before finding new life in microfluidics and biomedical engineering. Not all of Tesla's inventions reached commercial success. In fact, many were dismissed, ridiculed, or outright ignored. He lacked the business acumen to protect or monetize his ideas effectively, and he was frequently undercut by better-connected rivals. Where Edison saw patents as weapons and products, Tesla viewed them as proof of visione, public record of where humanity could go if it dared. His notebooks, many lost or seized after his death, hint at devices he never patented: beam weapons, energy transmitters, anti-gravity propulsion systems. Whether these were serious designs or speculative dreams is still debated. But even his documented inventions suggest a mind that saw not only how things were, but how they could be, how technology could be a force for liberation rather than control. Tesla once said, "Let the future tell the truth, and evaluate each one according to his work and accomplishments." If the measure of a man is in what he builds, Tesla's legacy is immeasurable. His patents were more than legal documents. They were fragments of a larger dream of a planet wired not with cables, but with connection. A world lit not just by electricity, but by imagination. And perhaps, somewhere among those diagrams and formulas, the future is still catching up. For all his genius, Nikola Tesla was never a man of business. While his contemporaries like Thomas Edison and George Westinghouse built vast empires from their inventions, Tesla operated with a different currency: vision. He saw invention as a service to humanity, not a path to personal wealth. But in a world increasingly driven by profit margins, patents, and corporate leverage, Tesla's idealism became his downfall. In the early years, Tesla tasted success. His AC patents brought in significant royalties, and Westinghouse's support gave him the freedom to experiment on a grand scale. But as costs for the war of currents mounted, Westinghouse's company came under immense financial pressure. Tesla, recognizing the strain, made a fateful decision. He tore up his royalty contract, which entitled him to $2.5 per horsepower of electricity sold, on amount that could have made him one of the richest men in the world. Instead, he let it go. "You have been my friend," Tesla told Westinghouse. "You have believed in me when others had not. You have generously aided me. Now you are in trouble, and I will not add to your embarrassment. I will cancel the contract, and you will no longer pay me." It was a gesture of loyalty and integrity, but also one that would cost him dearly for the rest of his life. With his most lucrative income stream gone, Tesla relied on grants, loans, and sporadic backing from wealthy patrons. He poured every dollar he could find into Wardenclyffe and other visionary projects, none of which produced immediate returns. Investors, frustrated by Tesla's grand but vague promises of global wireless power and death rays, began to back away. The financial world found him brilliant but unreliable, inspiring but impractical. As his fame waned, so did his access to capital. Tesla never owned factories, never built a company to sell his inventions. He patented ideas and gave them away, expecting the world to recognize their value and act accordingly. But without the machinery of business behind him, even the most revolutionary ideas remained just that, ideas. He also made a series of poor financial decisions. He invested in the Colorado Springs laboratory, believing it would generate results that would attract new funding. It didn't. He launched minor ventures, including a failed attempt to commercialize a bladeless turbine. He even sought to re-enter the radio race after being eclipsed by Marconi. But legal battles drained time and resources, with no victory in sight until long after his death. By the 1920s, Tesla had lost almost everything. He moved from hotel to hotel in New York, often evicted for unpaid bills. Former admirers and collaborators offered occasional support, but it was piecemeal. Tesla stubbornly refused charity, maintaining the appearance of dignity even as his clothes wore thin and his shoes wore out. Yet, through all this, Tesla remained intellectually active. He continued to write, sketch, and theorize. His mind never stopped. But the projects became more speculative, more grandiose. He claimed to have developed an earthquake machine, a death beam, a method to send messages to other planets. The public, once enraptured, now regarded him as more curiosity than profit. What's tragic is not just the loss of wealth, but what it represented: a society that had no structure to support a mind like Tesla's. End of quote. He operated outside of commercial logic. He was too focused on the long arc of innovation to bother with stockholders or board meetings. In the age of industrial capitalism, he was an artist in a factory, brilliant, but badly out of place. Tesla's financial collapse wasn't due to failure in science, but a failure of alignment with the economic systems around him. He didn't protect his patents. He didn't monetize his fame. He refused to play the political and corporate games required to maintain power. He wanted to give the world light, and instead, he was left in the shadows. But perhaps that is what made him so unique. Unlike Edison, who was a businessman with a lab coat, Tesla was a dreamer with a blueprint. He wasn't trying to dominate a market. He was trying to uplift humanity. In the process, he lost everything tangible but left behind a legacy that no fortune could buy. He died without money. But the world he helped create, electrified, connected, driven by invisible forces, was his true inheritance. Tesla had aimed for the stars, and though he never owned a piece of Earth, the future still owes him its light. For decades after his death, in 1943, Nikola Tesla's name lingered in the margins of science and history books, mentioned briefly, if at all, often overshadowed by the towering legacies of Thomas Edison or Marconi. His achievements were respected by some, misunderstood by most, and largely forgotten by the general public. But Tesla, ever the prophet of future generations, was destined not to remain in obscurity. As the 20th century advanced into the age of information and innovation, something extraordinary happened. The world began to rediscover him. The Tesla Renaissance began slowly. In the 1960s and 70s, a wave of curiosity about unsung inventors and alternative thinkers emerged. Fringe scientists, counterculture technologists, and a growing DIY electronics movement began digging into Tesla's forgotten patents and writings. Some were drawn to his unorthodox ideas about energy and frequency. Others were captivated by his flamboyant personality and mysterious end. Conspiracy theories about government-seized notebooks and secret weapons fueled public intrigue. Tesla became a kind of mythic figure, part genius, part ghost, part cult icon. But beyond the mythology, historians and engineers began reassessing his actual, documented contributions. Scholars revisited his patents on alternating current, induction motors, wireless communication, and remote control, realizing how many of them had directly shaped the infrastructure of the modern world. Universities began including him in textbooks. His role in the War of Currents was re-examined, and his priority over Marconi in the development of radio transmission was finally acknowledged in the U.S. Supreme Court decision of 1943. Popular culture soon caught on. Tesla became a fixture in films, novels, comic books, and television shows. David Bowie portrayed him with eerie gravitas in The Prestige, 2006, casting him as a magician inventor who straddled science and the supernatural. Graphic novels and steampunk fiction elevated him to almost superhero status. The man who tamed lightning. Songs, bands, and video games invoked his name as a symbol of brilliant rebellion and visionary power. Perhaps the greatest symbol of Tesla's posthumous vindication came in 2003, when Elon Musk and a group of engineers named their electric car company after him. The Tesla Motors brand, now simply Tesla Inc., reintroduced his name to the global lexicon, this time as a badge of cutting-edge technology and environmental progress. While the company and the man share little beyond electricity and innovation, the name served as a bridge between Tesla's dream of wireless power and the clean energy revolution of the 21st century. His legacy found physical form as well. Statues of Tesla now stand in Belgrade, Niagara Falls, and even on the grounds of Wardenclyffe, the site of his ill-fated tower. The Tesla Science Center at Wardenclyffe, a nonprofit formed by devoted fans and scientists, successfully purchased the land with the help of a viral internet campaign and a large donation from Elon Musk. Plans are underway to turn it into a full-scale museum and educational facility, a long overdue monument to the man once forgotten. In Serbia, where he is celebrated as a national hero, Tesla adorns currency, school names, and even the main international airport in Belgrade. His ashes are housed in a glowing sphere at the Nikola Tesla Museum, visited by thousands each year. Annual Tesla Day celebrations, conferences, and science fairs around the world pay homage to his life and ideas. What's striking about Tesla's resurgence is how deeply it resonates with our age. In a time obsessed with technology, sustainability, and innovation, Tesla represents a rare archetype, the inventor who worked not for profit, but for possibility. He foresaw wireless communication, renewable energy, smart devices, drones, and global power networks long before they became viable. He imagined a connected world driven by curiosity and free energonaut cables and corporations. Tesla's second life is more than a correction of history. It's a cultural reckoning with how we value ideas, how we treat visionaries, and how easily society discards those who dream too far ahead. His legacy is not just in the machines we use or the electricity we take for granted. It's in the spirit of invention that dares to defy convention. After nearly a century of exile from the mainstream, Nikola Tesla is no longer just a footnote. He is a headline, a symbol, a reminder that the brightest minds often burn alone, but that their light never truly fades. Even with a legacy rich in tangible inventions and real-world breakthroughs, Nikola Tesla remains a figure shrouded in mystery. More than perhaps any other scientist in history, his name is associated not just with innovation, but with enigma. Part of this comes from Tesla himself, man who delighted in cryptic interviews, issued sweeping cosmic predictions, and hinted at inventions too powerful or too dangerous for humanity to wield. Part of it, however, comes from what he left behind: notebooks filled with incomplete designs, rumors of hidden devices, and patents that seem like fragments of something greater. Chief among the mysteries is the fate of Tesla's so-called death ray, or as he formerly called it, the teleforce weapon. In his later years, Tesla claimed to have designed a directed energy weapon that could destroy aircraft, disable armies, or shield entire countries with an invisible wall of electric force. He insisted it was not a beam of light or radiation, but a high-velocity stream of microscopic particles accelerated by a massive electrostatic repulsion device. It will be possible to destroy anything approaching within 200 miles, he boasted. Though he offered it to multiple governments, including the United States and the Soviet Union, one funded its development. After Tesla's death in 1943, the FBI ordered his belongings seized under the Alien Property Custodian, despite his U.S. citizenship. Much of his material was turned over to MIT electrical engineer John G. Trump, uncle of future President Donald Trump, who concluded there was nothing of military significance. Yet to this day, certain documents remain classified, and conspiracy theories persist. Did Tesla actually build a prototype? Did another government acquire it in secret? Connected to these theories is the alleged Tesla earthquake machine, a mechanical oscillator that, according to Tesla, once nearly brought down his New York laboratory. He claimed that with precise tuning, he could induce vibrations strong enough to shake the foundations of buildings or even trigger seismic activity. Some modern researchers dismiss it as exaggeration. Others believe he had tapped into resonance principles, still not fully understood. Tesla, true to form, refused to reveal full schematics. Then there are his musings on free energy, the dream that defined his later years. Tesla believed that the Earth itself was a conductor of electrical energy, and that power could be transmitted wirelessly through the air and ground using specific resonant frequencies. Wardenclyffe was meant to be the first of a global network of energy beacons. Tesla hinted that he had discovered a way to harness what he called the radiant energy of the cosmos, energy that required no fuel, no wires, and could never be monopolized. Modern physicists are divided on these claims. Some see them as poetic metaphors for concepts Tesla only partially understood. Others believe he glimpsed a frontier that science has yet to fully explore. Concepts like zero-point energy, scalar fields, and wireless power transmission have since gained legitimacy in fringe and emerging scientific circles. Whether Tesla had the means to fully exploit them remains unanswered. Adding to the intrigue is Tesla's claim that he once received signals from outer space. During his Colorado Springs experiments in 1899, he reported detecting a series of pulses that seemed artificial in origin. While some attribute the signals to natural sources like Jupiter's radio emissions, Tesla was convinced they were communications from intelligent life. "I have observed electrical actions which have appeared inexplicable," he wrote, "and have convinced myself that they are due to causes altogether outside our globe." In modern times, this story has made Tesla a figure of fascination, not only in science but in UFO and alien contact lore. He appears in countless speculative histories, science fiction stories, and conspiracy theories that portray him as a man who unlocked forbidden knowledge too advanced, too disruptive, and too dangerous for his time. His death added another layer to the mystery. Found alone in a locked room at the Hotel New Yorker, Tesla was said to have left behind trunks of papers, devices, and notes. Many of these items vanished, were withheld, or were destroyed. Some believe critical pieces of his research are still hidden in government archives or private collections. But perhaps the real mystery is not what Tesla built, but what he imagined. His true power was not in death rays or earthquake machines. It was in the relentless belief that nature's secrets could be unlocked by harmony, frequency, and thought. He believed the universe was a symphony, and he spent his life trying to learn its rhythm. In an age where science and spirituality often diverged, Tesla walked between them, seeing both divine order and mechanical precision in the cosmos. Whether his most exotic claims were true, half-true, or simply poetic, they continue to inspire questions that modern science hasn't finished asking. Tesla remains the rare figure whose myth and reality are equally extraordinary. In life, he lit the world. In death, he haunts it quietly, humming with untapped energy. Though Nikola Tesla died in obscurity, his presence today is undeniably etched in currency, towering in statues, glowing in city lights, powered by his ideas. After decades of neglect, the world slowly, then enthusiastically, began to resurrect his name and commemorate his contributions. The monuments to Tesla are more than metal and stone. They are symbols of delayed justice, a society catching up to a visionary it once ignored. Perhaps the most iconic physical tribute is the Nikola Tesla Museum in Belgrade, Serbia. Housed in a stately villa, the museum contains thousands of original documents, models, photographs, and personal belongings. Most famously, it holds a spherical urn with Tesla's ashes placed, not in a box or casket, but in a glowing orb, as if the man who played with lightning should rest in the shape of a star. Each year, the museum draws thousands of visitors from around the globe: engineers, dreamers, students, and the simply curious. In Belgrade, Tesla's legacy is deeply personal. He appears on the 100-dinar banknote, and the country's largest airport bears his name, Nikola Tesla Airport. Streets, schools, and even a power plant are named after him. Though Tesla was ethnically Serbian and born in what is now Croatia, both nations claim him with pride. He transcends nationalism, becoming a shared symbol of Balkan brilliance that speaks not to borders, but to minds. In the United States, His image has risen alongside his reputation. A bronze statue of Tesla stands at Niagara Falls, near the site where his alternating current system first proved itself to the world. Another was erected on the grounds of Wardenclyffe, his long-dormant dream of wireless power reborn as a preservation site and science center. That rebirth was no small feat. In 2012, internet cartoonist Matthew Inman of the Oatmeal launched a crowdfunding campaign to buy the dilapidated Wardenclyffe site. The campaign went viral, raising over $1.3 million, and was boosted by a $1 million donation from Elon Musk, whose Tesla electric car company had already reintroduced the inventor's name to pop culture. The land was purchased, and the Tesla Science Center at Wardenclyffe was born, with plans to turn it into a museum, research hub, and innovation campus. For the first time in a century, the Tower of Dreams had new scaffolding. Tesla's resurgence has also sparked a wave of documentaries, books, and artistic tributes. He is the subject of films such as Tesla, 2020, starring Ethan Hawke, and countless appearances in shows and games. His face is printed on t-shirts, mugs, and murals. But more than merchandising, this revival reflects an overdue recognition of a man who was written off because he dreamed too far ahead. In the academic world, conferences, lectures, and journals now explore Tesla's science with fresh eyes. Engineers are still revisiting his designs, some of which are only now being understood with modern tools. High-frequency power transmission, wireless energy transfer, and resonant inductive coupling, all areas Tesla touched, are being actively developed today. Schools named in his honor teach robotics, electronics, and physics. Innovators cite him not just for what he built, but how he thought. He has become a patron saint of the unorthodox Minda. Reminder that creativity often requires solitude, that brilliance may look like madness, and that the future belongs to those who dare to imagine it first. And then, there are the fans, the Tesla societies, forums, festivals, and online communities that keep his legacy alive in the digital age. From Reddit threads to Reddit tributes, from Tesla coils at maker fairs to startup founders quoting his visions, the name Tesla has become shorthand for inspired rebellion, for science unchained by convention. These tributes, large and small, form a constellation, a network of light that, fittingly, mirrors the global electrical grid Tesla helped create. From Belgrade to Shoreham, from bronze statues to glowing screens, the world has begun to honor a man who once tried to light it without wires. Tesla's monuments are more than places, they are promises that the world can one day reward ideas for their brilliance, not just their profitability, that a mind ahead of its time can eventually come home, and that even if the towers fall, the sparks they send into the sky can still be seen a century later. As the 21st century unfolds, the shadow of Nikola Tesla stretches longer than ever. His inventions shaped the foundation of modern civilization, but it is his vision, his unyielding belief in a future of boundless energy, global connectivity, and harmonious technology that continues to ignite imaginations. Tesla died nearly penniless, his towers dismantled, his notes scattered, yet somehow he won. His ideas have outlived the empire builders, the patent hoarders, and the skeptics. His moment was not the past, it is now, and perhaps even more, it is still ahead. Tesla once dreamed of a world where electricity was as free as air, where towers would beam power wirelessly across oceans, where machines responded to thought, communication transcended borders, and energy flowed without resistance. Many of these ideas were considered outlandish in his time. But today, we live in a wireless world, powered by alternating current, connected by radio waves, and buzzing with the hum of remote signals. Tesla didn't just predict the future, he began building it. In recent decades, We've seen breakthroughs Tesla would have delighted in. Wireless charging pads now echo the principle of inductive coupling he demonstrated more than a century ago. Experiments in beaming solar energy from space to Earth revive his dreams of limitless power from above. Self-driving cars, automated drones, smart homes all follow lines first sketched in the air by Tesla's mind. And yet, for all that has come true, some of his wildest ambitions remain unfulfilled. Global wireless energy, accessible to all, remains elusive and not because the physics is impossible, but because the politics, economics, and infrastructure still resist it. The idea of an Earth powered through resonance still haunts the edges of scientific curiosity. Tesla's notes, some lost, some dismissed, some still locked in archives, continue to whisper of what might yet be uncovered. Tesla imagined more than machines. He imagined a better humanity. He believed that technology, properly used, could eliminate poverty, end war, and elevate the mind. The desire that guides me in all I do is the desire to harness the forces of nature to the service of mankind, he said. He didn't want to create for profit or control, but for liberation. In that sense, Tesla wasn't just ahead of his time. He belonged to a different category, altogether one that transcends eras. His ideas resonate because they are timeless, unbound by the limitations of their origin. In him, we find not only a model of scientific brilliance, but a moral compass for invention. Progress must serve humanity, not merely markets. As we face challenges of climate change, energy inequality, and digital overload, Tesla's philosophy becomes more relevant than ever. He reminds us that science is not just about gadgets and details, about purpose. It's about looking at a bolt of lightning and seeing not chaos, but possibility. Around the world, new generations of inventors, engineers, and thinkers draw inspiration from him. They see in his life a blueprint not just for how to build, but how to dream. His name has become a rallying cry for creativity unchained from convention, for passion undiluted by profit, for genius unafraid to walk alone. In the end, perhaps Tesla's greatest invention wasn't the motor, or the coil, or even the current. It was the example of a life lived in full pursuit of knowledge, fearless, relentless, and profoundly human. He lit the world with his mind. And that light, though passed from hand to hand, continues to shine, flickering not just in our devices, but in our hope for what the future might still become.